Hi, this is Mr. Mike for the Mechanicsburg Learning Center with episode 78 of Mr. Mike's Dino-A-Day. I'll talk to you about an animal that not many people have heard of. I hadn't heard of it. In fact, what I was doing, I was scraping through the alphabet yesterday and taking note to all the different poems that I've written over these last 78 days. Many of them are brand new. And some of them have come from books, the Dinorific poetry books. So if we talk about a specific animal, and I have already written a poem about that specific animal, I may read from the book. But more often than not, I am forced to write a brand new one for you every day to stay up on it. So as I was perusing the alphabet of dinosaurs that we have gone through, and there have been several. I was noticing the other day, and I talked about it, how there seems to be a plethora of animals around the letter D, around the letter A, around the letter M, especially a lot of M's, and a few around P and R. But there are that are listed, as far as I was concerned, for the poems I've written under the letter U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. So then I took a look at the ones that I've written for you. Udanoceratops, Xenotarsosaurus, U. tyrannus, and yesterday's ZB, which means that after today there will only be one letter left of the alphabet that I have not written a brand new poem about for you. Today we tackle the letter V. Now, you got the most popular one out there. As soon as I say V, someone's going to say Velociraptor. Yes, yes. And there is Volcanodon, and there is even one called Valdosaurus. But I wanted to concentrate on one that I hadn't heard of, and I wanted to do the research and find out more about it. And I came up with Valdosaurus. So today's animal, Valdosaurus, which takes care of the letter V, and you know what that means. Tomorrow, or the next day, I will have to write one that starts with the letter W in order to complete all 26 letters of the alphabet. So what we may do is maybe just have a book called, the Mr. Mike's Dino Alphabet or something like that. So today's animal, Valdosaurus, was discovered back in 1848. It's even tough when you're doing the research to find necessarily when specifically it was found, because sometimes a bone is found and it takes a long time, years, for that bone to be attributed to a species. Maybe it's misidentified, or maybe if it's not even recognized as a dinosaur bone, or like the case we had the other day, it sits in the collection of some museum until some curious young budding paleontologist decides to take a closer look, chip away, and realize, holy mackerel, we have a brand new dinosaur genus here. And that happens. So some of the greatest discoveries, some of the newest discoveries of dinosaurs are being made not out in the field, but in the existing collections of a museum. So Valdosaurus was discovered by Reverend William, of all names, Darwin. Isn't that funny? William Darwin Fox. He discovered two thigh bones, and they were a little unique. The fact that your thigh bone, the femur, longest bone in the human body, is very straight, very beefy. This one had a slight curve to it, which made it unique. The animal that it was related to, in fact, the animal that Reverend William Darwin Fox thought it was the semi-recently discovered for him, the iguanodon. Yeah, the iguanodon was just named around the time that he discovered these thigh bones. So he just attributed it to that animal. Well, over the years, this animal has been named other things. 1869, someone named it Hypsilophodon. Turned out it was not Hypsilophodon. A year before was when it was officially named Iguanodon, and that turned out to be incorrect. 1975, it took the whole way up to 1975 for Peter Galton to rename this genus and call it Dryosaurus. That didn't last too long, because 2 years later, Galton himself renamed it Valdosaurus. So Valdosaurus is the name that we know it as currently. In fact, in 1998, there was a gentleman, William Blows. He actually named another animal mistakenly Valdosaurus, and then, of course, they had to correct that because we already had a genus of dinosaur called Valdosaurus. 2012, they discover the back end, a fully articulated skeleton of the Valdosaurus. That was 2012, discovered by a Nick Chase. Articulated means all the bones are still in place. The front half of the animal was gone, but from the middle of the back, through the back legs, down to the tip of the tail, they had all the articulated bones sitting there, and it taught them more about the animal that looked a lot like Iguanodon, except with a little bit more curve to the femur, the thigh bone. And then in 2016, they went ahead and described that dinosaur that was discovered in 2012, described by Paul Barrett, as I said, in 2016. So recent years, we've learned a lot more about this animal, and I would assume we will discover more and more as we discover more bones. The original bones were pulled from a very famous layer of rock in East Sussex, England. It was known as, well, this area is known as the Isle of Wight. It's a beautiful area off the southern tip of England. And this particular area has very interesting rock strata. And the rock strata, different layers of rock, was referred to as the Wealden group. Almost sounds like a band. In fact, some refer to it as the Wealden supergroup because it has a supergroup of different layers of sediment. Some sand that turns into sandstone and some other material, but they all are very interesting, and they've pulled a lot of very interesting dinosaurs from the Wealden group, that area on the Isle of Wight. Notably, Eotyrannus, Baryonyx, Iguanodon, Mantellosaurus, and Hypsilophodon. All these dinosaurs, which are relatively well-known dinosaurs, have been pulled from this specific area. So we add Valdosaurus to that group. Now, the Valdosaurus had curved femurs. Legs were kind of long. It looked like Iguanodon, except it was a little smaller. It was only about 12 feet long. And the measurement that we use for height, usually, you know, if you're talking about a person, you're talking about how tall the person is from their foot to their head. When you talk about a dinosaur, often they referred to the height to the hips. So the Valdosaurus had a height to the hips of about 4.5 feet. So it wasn't huge, but it was a decent-sized animal. Had 3 toes, which made it a little bit unique. And as I said, the thigh bones were a little bit curved. It had a horn, so it was definitely herbivorous. Definitely spent a lot of time being bipedal on 2 legs, and it was fast. So now we know a lot about this. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to write a story, again, not necessarily concentrating strictly on just the nuts and bolts of the dinosaur, because really there's not a heck of a lot about it that makes it completely unique. There's a couple little things, but it's not as extravagant as T-Rex or Stegosaurus with interesting plates on its back, or T-Rex with the big teeth. So I wanted to go in a different direction, and again, talk about, after you've been doing this 77, 78 times, you want to try to throw a curveball, just like the femur. So here we go. Here is the story of Valdosaurus, written and completed minutes ago by yours truly, Mr. Mike, in association with the Mechanicsburg Learning Center, brought to you every day. We will be shifting our live time on Facebook. In all likelihood, we're looking at 7 p.m. starting tomorrow. As life begins to return to normal, or whatever we want to call normal, days are getting busier and busier, and I want to make sure I'm doing this at a time that I have plenty of time to do the research and make sure this is as accurate as possible. So we're shifting from a 10 a.m. start time, which today is 1 p.m., to a 7 p.m. start time, which will give you guys something to play for the kids before bedtime. Valdosaurus. Put my glasses on to make it official. It took more than 100 years until this dinosaur was given its most current name, but who is keeping score? 2 thigh bones that were found by Reverend William Darwin Fox were spotted in East Sussex, hiding in some ancient rocks. Now, this occurred way back sometime around 1848, but history is sketchy, so we have to estimate. We know the fact that layers of rock were certainly germane because it's been some time. The truth is harder to attain. Those special layers of rock has housed fantastic dinosaurs, iguanodon and baryonyx, plus some pterosaurs. And this is where the Valdosaurus got its genus name. Discovered on the Isle of Wight, it garnered much acclaim. Collectively, the layers of rock are called the Wealden group, and Valdo comes from Valdus, which is Latin. That's the scoop. Now you have to understand the name is pertinent and clear and wholly more legitimate than it might first appear. So what do we know about the Valdosaurus as for now? Herbivorous, bipedal with 3 toes, plus we know how it moved around quite rapidly on lengthy femurs, curved. So when a hungry beast ran straight, the Valdosaurus swerved. Recall it took a while for the name thing to be set, so is it solved for good? We have no way to know just yet. The Valdosaurus has been known by other names at times, but frankly, with a lot of them, it's hard to find good rhymes. The Valdosaurus by Mr. Mike, brought to you by the Mechanicsburg Learning Center. We do this live on Facebook every day. We thank you for watching. Tomorrow, beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, be ready, set your alarms, and come watch live. We also make these available on YouTube, so please do me a favor and subscribe and watch the next one. And please like the videos. It helps things move along quickly. So, thanks so much for watching. For the animal that looked a lot like Iguanodon, the Valdosaurus, this is Mr. Mike saying have a great day, and we'll do it tomorrow, 7 p.m. live.